Today, we are taking a hard look at a concept that I think is simultaneously one of the most demanded and most misunderstood traits in our lives.
For sure.
We're talking about accountability, and I want to be clear right off the bat. We aren't talking about the version that gets thrown around on cable news or in those, angry corporate emails.
Right. Usually when people say we need more accountability, what they actually mean is, I want to know who to punish.
Exactly.
It's become a code word for blame.
It feels punitive. It feels like getting sent to the principal's office. But we've been reading the work of leadership expert Michael Timms, and he argues this definition is not only wrong, but it's actually destroying our ability to solve problems.
He totally flips the script.
Oh.
His argument is that if you see accountability as just taking the hit when things go wrong, you're missing the entire point.
So what is the point then?
Real accountability is about engineering a reality where things go right. It's a shift from being a blame thrower to being a solution architect.
And to get there, we have to start with this story Timms shares. It's not some boardroom drama. It's a domestic disaster that he calls the Gong Show morning.
Oh, that's right.
And I have to say, reading this, I felt a physical reaction. I think anyone who's ever tried to get a group of people out the door on time will feel this in their bones.
It is a visceral scene. It's a perfect case study in management failure. Just, disguised as a family breakfast.
So set the scene for us.
Okay, so Timms and his wife are trying to get their 3 daughters ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big event. There's a strict deadline. The clock is ticking.
Right.
They have 5 minutes until they absolutely have to be in the car.
Yeah.
So Timms walks out the front porch to check on the team.
And this is where it all falls apart.
Complete operational failure.
Yeah.
The oldest daughter is just sitting on the porch, reading a book, totally oblivious.
Okay.
The middle daughter is inside, playing the piano. And the youngest is just standing there, 5 minutes to go, wearing absolutely no socks.
Oh no. And this is the moment where Timms initiates what he calls the dad meltdown.
Which is basically a blame and shame tactic, right? Yeah. He raises his voice, he's firing off commands. Stop reading, stop playing, put on socks, get in the car.
He assumes the problem is them, that they're not listening.
Exactly. He thinks he can force compliance through volume, so he thinks he solved it, goes back inside, grabs his keys, comes out 5 minutes later, and what do you think he finds?
Nothing has changed.
Zero progress. The piano is playing again, the socks are still missing, and the oldest daughter is still on the porch reading.
And when he confronts her,
she just looked up and says, I didn't hear you.
Now, in that moment, everything in your brain screams that these kids are the problem, right? They're disobedient, disorganized. But Tim says that reaction is a trap.
It is a trap. Because after the dust settled, he had this look in the mirror moment. He realized that while he was holding them responsible for being on time, he hadn't actually made them accountable.
What's the difference?
Well, he realized his daughters were living in a different dimension. A dimension where time didn't exist.
Because why?
There were no clocks in their bathrooms, no clocks in their bedrooms. He was expecting them to manage a schedule without giving them the main tool to measure it, a clock.
So the yelling, the dad meltdown, it was all useless.
It was worse than useless. It just damaged the relationship and solved nothing. So the pivot is, he didn't give them another lecture. He went to the store, bought big, ugly digital clocks, put them everywhere, and taped a schedule to the wall.
He engineered the environment.
Exactly. And the behavior changed. The Gong Show ended. And that really brings us to the mission of this deep dive, moving away from that blame game and towards what Timms calls the habits of personal accountability.
First, we have to talk about why we blame in the first place, because Timms gets into the biology of it, and it turns out we're actually hardwired to point fingers.
We are. It's a survival mechanism. When something goes wrong, a missed deadline, whatever, the brain processes it as a threat.
This is the amygdala hijack, right?
Right. The amygdala is that ancient fight-or-flight part of the brain. When you blame someone, you're launching a verbal attack. Their brain registers that just like a physical threat.
So the amygdala fires up to protect them.
It fires up, and here's the kicker. When the amygdala turns on, something else turns off.
The prefrontal cortex.
The CEO of the brain. Logic, reasoning, problem-solving, empathy. It all goes dark.
So when he was yelling at his daughter, he was literally inducing a chemical reaction that made her less capable of processing his instructions.
He was physiologically making her dumber in that moment. And we do this in offices every single day. We think a chewing out will motivate someone, but biologically, you were just shutting down their ability to solve the problem.
That connects directly to this study Tim cites that I found just fascinating. It's by Dr. Amy Edmondson about hospital teams.
Oh, this is a landmark study. So Edmondson goes into these hospitals to study medication errors. Her hypothesis is pretty standard. The best teams, the high-performing ones, will have the fewest reported errors.
Makes sense. Good teams don't mess up.
That's what she thought. But when the data came back, it was completely upside down. The high-performing teams were reporting significantly more errors.
Wait, so the good teams were actually more dangerous?
That was the initial fear. But when she dug in, she found the truth. They weren't making more errors.
They were just willing to report them.
Exactly. In the low-performing teams, the culture was defined by blame. If you admitted a mistake, you were the bad apple. You got the dad meltdown from the head nurse, so people just hid their mistakes.
Which, in a hospital?
Yeah.
That's terrifying. If you hide a dosing error, you can't fix the protocol.
And the next patient might suffer from that same mistake. The high-performing teams had what she calls psychological safety. They could say, hey, I almost grabbed the wrong vial. And the response wasn't yelling, it was, okay, why? Let's fix the label.
So silence isn't success. Silence is just hidden risk.
That is the takeaway. A culture of accountability is loud about its mistakes because it wants to fix them. A culture of blame is quiet right up until the disaster.
Okay, so we know blame kills cognitive function and it hides problems. So how do we stop? Timms breaks this down into 3 habits. Habit 1 is don't blame, which is the baseline. But habit 2 is where it gets uncomfortable.
Habit 2 is look in the mirror.
The idea that before you point a finger, you have to ask, how did I contribute to this problem?
And the phrasing there is so important. Not did I cause this, but did I contribute? Because usually we didn't pull the trigger.
But we might have loaded the gun.
Yes. And there's a story in the source material about Timms' own assistant that illustrates this perfectly. It's painful.
The marketing disaster.
Oh, it makes me cringe.
Yeah.
So Timms is running his firm. They're sending out this massive direct mail campaign. Expensive packages, high-value clients.
High stakes.
Very high. He gives the project to his assistant.
Yep.
She uses the template, merges the contacts, prints everything, mails them out. Weeks go by.
Nothing.
Crickets. Finally, Timms checks the file. He opens the document that was sent, and his heart just stops. The letter starts with, Dear Mr. Smith, insert company name here. Every single letter. It looked like spam.
Yes.
Thousands of dollars and weeks of work just gone.
Now, in most offices, what happens next? The assistant gets fired. Or at least screamed at, right? How could you be so careless?
And she felt terrible. She was ready to take all the blame. But Timms tried to practice habit 2. He looked in the mirror, he looked at the template she used, and then he compared it to other successful templates.
And what was the difference?
In all the successful templates, the variable fields, the parts that needed to be changed, were highlighted in bright yellow. You couldn't miss them.
But not this one.
In this one template, the text was just black. It blended in perfectly. So by not highlighting it, he had created a visual trap. He'd engineered a system where a simple oversight became a catastrophe.
That is such a huge shift. It's not, she is careless, it's, I gave her a flawed tool.
Precisely. And that leads directly to habit 3, which is the most actionable part of this. Engineer the solution. This is basically systems thinking.
And this is where we get to the B-17 bombers, which is my favorite part of this research.
It's the definitive example. So World War II, the U.S. Air Force has a crisis. Their B-17 bombers are crashing at an alarming rate.
And not in combat.
No, on the runway during landing. And the initial assumption, as always, was a people problem. The brass said, the pilots are idiots, or they're stressed out.
We need better pilots.
Exactly. But the crash has continued. So they bring in a psychologist, Alphonse Japanis. He sits in the cockpit to watch. And he notices something about the controls.
What'd he find?
He looked at the console. The lever for the landing gear and the lever for the wing flaps were identical. Same shape, same size, and right next to each other.
Oh, I see where this is going. You're a pilot, you've been flying for 10 hours, you're exhausted.
And you reach down to deploy the landing gear, but you grab the wrong lever. You retract the flaps, lose lift, and belly flop onto the runway. It wasn't stupid pilots. It was a cockpit designed to trick them.
So how did they fix it? More training.
Nope. You can't train away bad design. Japanis proposed shape coding. He glued a little rubber wheel onto the landing gear lever so it felt like a tire, and he glued a wedge shape onto the flap lever so it felt like a wing.
That's it.
That's it. Pilots could feel the difference. The crashes stopped almost overnight.
That's the power of engineering the solution. Don't fix the person, fix the environment.
And you can apply this to anything. If your team keeps deleting the wrong files, don't yell at them. Move the important files. If your kids aren't on time, buy a clock.
I want to zoom out a bit. We've talked about habits, but Timms also talks about what this means for leadership. Because I think we have this stereotype of a leader as the loudest person in the room.
The great man theory, yeah. The visionary genius. But Timms defines leadership very differently. He says, leaders elevate others to accomplish a common goal.
Elevate others, that feels really different from just having power.
It is. And to illustrate this, Timms draws a really sharp line between being a leader and an influencer. And he uses two political figures to make the point, just analytically, Donald Trump and Abraham Lincoln.
And just to be clear, we're not talking policy here. This is about the mechanics of how they operate, according to Timms.
Correct. So Timms categorizes Trump as an influencer. An influencer gathers followers, often through self-elevation. I am the only one who can fix it. It's a hub and spoke model.
And contrast that with the Lincoln archetype.
Lincoln is the gold standard for Timms' leader definition. I mean, think about his cabinet, the famous team of rivals. He appointed men who hated him, who had publicly insulted him.
Why would anyone do that? It sounds like a disaster.
Because he cared more about saving the Union than about his own ego. He knew he needed the best minds, even if they didn't like him. He elevated them to achieve the common goal.
That takes a level of humility that's so rare. It's putting the result above the self.
That is accountability. The mission is more important than my feelings. We saw a flash of this with Volodymyr Zelensky at the start of the Ukraine invasion.
The famous quote, "I need ammunition, not a ride."
That is the ultimate go-first principle. You can't ask your team to be accountable if you're looking for the exit. A leader sets the ceiling for accountability.
There's one final distinction from the source that I think is crucial. Responsibility versus accountability. I've used those words interchangeably my whole life.
And most people do, but they aren't synonyms. Responsibility is task-focused. It's about checking boxes.
I sent the email. I made the call.
Right. It's input-oriented. You can be perfectly responsible and still fail completely. A responsible salesperson says, I made my 50 calls today. Not my fault nobody bought.
They're defending their activity.
Exactly. But an accountable salesperson is result-focused. They care about the outcome. If they make 50 calls and get 0 sales, they say, my approach isn't working. I need to change the script.
So the responsible person says, I tried. The accountable person says, I will find a way.
Yes. And a lot of managers manage for responsibility. Did you do the task? Instead of accountability, did we solve the problem?
It seems like responsibility is about protecting yourself from blame, while accountability is about engineering the win.
That is a perfect way to put it.
So to wrap up, Timms has some strong words about management. He attacks a very common business idea.
The garbage graphic.
He calls it garbage.
Yeah, he does. He hates that chart that says managers implement and leaders have vision. The idea that the leader is this Steve Jobs type, too important for the details.
He says that's a myth.
A dangerous one. He says great leaders have to be operational. You can't fix the B-17 cockpit if you don't know what the knobs look like. A pure visionary who doesn't understand the system is just hallucinating.
Which brings it all back to the beginning. You have to look in the mirror. You have to understand the system.
Right. So for anyone listening who's ready to stop playing the blame game at work or, with their kids on the porch, Timms has a 1-week challenge.
And what's the challenge?
It's deceptively simple. For 1 week, don't try to fix anything. Don't even try to stop yourself from blaming people.
Just count.
Just count. Keep a tally. Every time you feel that urge to blame someone who moved my coffee. Why are you reading on the porch? Just mark it down. Even if you don't say it out loud.
Why does that help?
Because that urge is the amygdala trying to hijack you. By just noticing it, you engage your prefrontal cortex. You interrupt the circuit. You stop the hijack before it starts.
Yeah, and once you interrupt it, you create the space to ask the real questions.
How did I contribute? And how can we engineer a solution so this never happens again?
It's not about being nice. It's about being effective.
It's about fixing the cockpit, not yelling at the pilot.
That's it for this deep dive into the architecture of accountability. Thanks for listening.
And remember to check your templates for those variable fields.
See you next time.